Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
They're walking into a trap. Your orders are to deliver a message calling off tomorrow morning's attack. If you fail, it will be a massacre. Good evening and welcome to Three Guys in a Flick. This is where we review the good, the bad, and the absurd. Tonight's episode, 1917. Beware spoilers. Coming to you from a different location, we are actually at the professor's laboratory. My name is Don, and to my right we have our comic book guy, John.
Sir, yes, sir.
And to my left, we have the professor, Ken.
Evening, Governor.
Yeah, and you told me not to do the English accent, so good to know. Good to know. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty good.
I'm here, so that's a good thing.
Is it?
I think so.
Okay, well, I guess time will tell on this one. 1917, this was the professor's period pick.
Yep, I thought, when it comes to a period piece, the period is right in the title of the movie. Kind of hard to say that this isn't a period piece when it's right in the title.
1917?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you did there. The period of time is, in fact, 1917.
Hello.
All right, just making sure. Why else did you pick it?
I also believe that this is a beautifully shot movie, and I was confident that neither of you have seen it. As a matter of fact, I'm confident Don has seen it, or John has seen it. Have you watched this movie yet, Don?
Yeah, I just finished it up this afternoon.
Okay. I don't know if I believe you, and if you're just going off of notes and you really haven't watched it.
You know what? I got to be 100% honest with you guys. I was really dragging my feet watching this flick.
Oh, I got that right off the bat.
So even though we had to push recording off a couple of days, I would go home and I go, do I want to watch it? And I go, no, it's going to be like 6 hours. It's a fucking war movie. I liked it better when they called it Dunkirk. And I just kept going on and on in my head.
Oh, boy. We should talk a little bit about Dunkirk versus 1917. I don't know if we'll get into that or not. But
I liked it better when they called it Lord of the Rings.
Well, of course you would. So yeah, I dragged my feet, but I did watch it from beginning to end, and I'm not lying about it. So there you go. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I just thought that since neither of you had seen it, I think it is a beautifully shot movie, and I thought that it would be worth discussing.
You had seen it before?
I have not seen it before.
Oh, this was your first time?
This was my first time.
How was it?
Well, should I tell you now or should I wait till my review?
Give me a recap of your first time in 3 words.
It didn't hurt as bad as I thought it would.
It was more than 3 words, but good. I'm glad. That's kind of positive. So
I will honestly say I actually enjoyed the movie.
Oh, right on.
Down to 4 words.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
That is pretty good. Released on December 4th, 2019 in London, Christmas Day 2019 in the United States, and on January 10th, 2020 in the UK. This movie was directed by Sam Mendes, written by Sam Mendes, Christy Wilson Carnes, stars George MacKay, Dean Charles Chapman, Mark Strong, Andrew Scott, Richard Madden, Claire Duburcq, Colin Firth, and Benedict Cumberbatch. This movie was made for $95 million and brought in $385 million. So not too bad on the money front.
It's pretty impressive because of of a lot of issues. It had a very limited release originally.
Well, what were the issues?
Well, COVID. Okay, was COVID back then?
COVID happened just after theatrical release. So
I don't remember that.
Because COVID started to shut things down around March, and this was released in December, around Christmas.
Yeah, because it was definitely in the theaters. Didn't you see it in the theaters?
I did.
Yeah, I remember, and you kept telling me, dude, you got to see this, dude, you got to see this. And, well, I never saw it.
No,
so.
Did you see it?
I forced you.
Professor,
Totally.
did you see it in IMAX?
I don't recall seeing it in IMAX necessarily.
Yeah, the director said that this movie was made for IMAX. So I'm curious to see how it would look and sound in IMAX.
Bigger and louder than what you saw on your TV, probably.
Oh, okay. Well, that helps.
Yeah, well.
Thanks for painting that visual picture.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
It was
that's what
transformative.
that's what IMAX is going to bring you, bigger and louder. On April 6, 1917, as a regiment assembles to wage war deep in enemy territory, 2 soldiers are assigned to race against time and deliver a message that will stop 1,600 men from walking straight into a deadly trap.
So what makes this a period piece?
Because it says it in the title, because it happened in 1917 and it's 2021.
Well, I figure of the 4 criteria it was required to be a period piece, a biopic, costume drama, historical romance, or historical epic, this fits right well into the historical epic genre of a period piece.
I agree. The fact that it's set in World War I tells me it's a period piece. I was thinking about this as I was watching this. Is it more of a war film? But then I started thinking, well, aren't all war films period pieces at some point? And then I started thinking, fuck, everything you watch could be technically classified as a period piece. So I move from now until the end of time that we don't ever talk about period pieces again.
At least we're not going to use it as a central focal point for a movie.
Fair enough. If I say drama and you want to get all clever and funky with it, cool, so be it.
Bloody right.
It's a little bit like calling like a zombie movie a food movie.
Well,
They do eat brains.
okay, time will tell on that motherfucker because we still have his food movie to pull out of the hat.
yeah.
I swear to God, dude, if it's like Night of the Living Dead or something, I'm going to kick you in the nuts.
Regarding the genre for this movie, I was doing some reading on it, and even the director doesn't really describe it as a war film. He describes it more of a thriller, and I think that definition fits better than war film because it's more about 2 people running through a situation that you don't know around any turn. They could be shot, they could fall into a hole, they could have another explosion. So it's just a kind of a thrilling ride, the whole movie.
Yeah, okay. It's still a fucking war film. And
Okay.
he's got to admit it too. It's
Well, it
set
is-
in World War II, World War One. It's
that's the
about
setting.
soldiers.
That's the setting, but I feel like it's more of a thriller than a focus on war. You don't actually see a lot of the war happening.
So
you just
you-
see them running through the streets and running through the farm and running through everything else.
So you consider 1917 a thriller, not a war movie.
No, I didn't say it's not a war movie. I said it's more of a thriller.
So you
According
consider...
It's more of the focus.
According to Sam Mendes,
Yes.
the director.
Yeah, I know who Sam Mendes is. Well, he's wrong, and it's a fucking war movie.
That happens to be a period piece.
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, dude, we allowed Moulin Rouge.
Did you?
1917 for sure fits.
Did you allow that one?
Well, I mean, we recorded it. I'm in the middle of editing it, so
Yeah.
I
I think
mean,
people listen to it, I think they're going to disagree on your allowance.
Oh, I have no. Everyone's gonna call it a musical. It's a musical.
That happens to be
But
a period piece.
No, fuck off.
This is a musical as well.
You know, and I thought about that when it got to that scene. I went, oh, for fuck's sakes, are we singing again? And yeah, we were. Hats off to you, Professor, for picking 1917.
The musical.
The musical. So let's talk a little bit about this wanting to feel like one continuous shot. After I kind of found out that this was what it was about, and after it started and how we started moving with the camera, I started trying to find the cuts.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that would be a constant distraction for you
And it took me out of the movie.
because that was what you were paying more attention to.
And I fucking found some of them, fucking for sure, even backed up by the behind the scenes making that I watched before coming over here. But yeah, it just kind of took me out of it. Now, when I wasn't thinking too hard about it and going along for the ride, it's beautifully shot. And I guess there are 91% of the film has one or some sort of visual effects shot in it. 91% of that film. So,
And the longest single cut is about 8.5 minutes.
oh, I heard it was 6, but 8.5.
The shortest was about 38 seconds. The longest was 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, and you can see it. Some of the cuts were to me obvious choices where to switch it up, and then I started thinking about it as a visual effects film, and then I'm thinking, oh fuck, anytime you don't have a human being in the frame, you can make a cut because everything else is digital, and you can just bring it right in.
Or when they go through a door frame, or
well, they're not in
smoke.
But they're not in the frame.
Yeah.
The human beings are gone. Like going through the door frame, it's masked with black.
Yeah.
Going through when he falls into the water, it's masked from the ripples and everything that the water makes when he goes into it. So it's little things like that. When we pan up to the sky, it's another way you can get away with it.
I know you said that it kind of took you out of the movie. It actually kind of drew me into the movie because I also was looking for where the cuts were, but I was so impressed on the way that they covered up those cuts, that it wasn't, you could tell where they were, but they weren't smacking you in the face. They weren't extremely obvious. They fit the film.
So here's the thing about it. There are 2 hard cuts in this film. Does anybody know where they're at? 2 obvious cuts.
Well, there's the one where he gets shot in the head and gets knocked out and then wakes up later that night.
Ding, ding, ding. That's one for you. Where's the other one?
Was it when the explosion?
Huh?
Hard cuts.
Was it the explosion when they got buried in the rubble or falls in the water? He rolls into the room.
At the end, we cut to black.
I was thinking that, but I thought that's stupid because cut to black. Or
you could fade to black. Fade to black is not a hard cut.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but I thought, no, he's talking about something else. No, fuck you.
I really like, too, the real time in this. Except that, the scene where he gets knocked out and wakes up at night, it all takes place in real time.
Why do you?
I was wondering about that, and I don't know.
Why do you think Sam chose to do that for the movie?
Well, he had to shoot it during the day because there were no lights. Because of the way he wanted to tell the story, he had to use cameras and equipment that were continuously on the move. And if you've ever been on a film shoot, you can't just pick up your lights and move them while you're shooting, right? So they did it all under the cover of clouds on sunny days on location. Pretty impressive.
It also kind of had a video game feel because you're basically following behind the main characters.
Well, and then I was kind of thinking about that too when he would say stuff like it was just the 2 of us, or now it's just me, or whatever. I was thinking, well, it could be the 3 of us because the audience has been going with you since you left, right? And so I counted 2 hard cuts, and the rest you really had to look for. But other than that, I'm shocked that this did not get nominated for Best Editing for the Academy Awards. How many did it win?
It won 3 for Oscars. It won it for cinematography, visual effects, and sound mixing. And this was the last year that they had sound mixing and sound editing separate. After this, sound was just sound. Yeah. But then the others that it got nominated for picture, director, original screenplay, makeup, production, music, and sound editing.
Editing for sure, because it was fucking seamless. And it was fun. I mean, it was other than, I say that it takes me out, and sometimes it did. And actually, as I say that, in the very beginning, when they first have their real bits of dialogue, the ADR was so in my face. I could tell that they were in a studio recording this. They weren't outside. And then I started thinking about it. Well, the way they're moving these cameras, there's no way they have boom operators with them. But watching the behind the scenes, it turns out they did. And then the equipment that they came up with, this stuff, it's just fucking amazing.
Well, one of the things
they did it.
The costume designer did is they sewed lavalier mics into the costumes and made them specifically so that they would hear well through wool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was just very interesting.
I think Sam chose to shoot it in this style because he wanted the audience to feel tension and anxiety over the urgency of what it is that is laid before Blake and Schofield. These 2 soldiers have just stepped into an incredibly urgent and important mission that they are going to face perilous situations and there's no getting out of it. There's no break. And I think that's part of the reason why he chose to shoot it like that, was so that way we could feel the anxiety and the tension as these soldiers are feeling it as we move through.
On 6 April 1917, aerial reconnaissance has observed that the German army, which has pulled back from a sector of the Western Front in northern France, is not in retreat, but has made a strategic withdrawal to a new Hindenburg line, where they are waiting to overwhelm the British with artillery. In the British trenches, with field telephone lines cut, 2 young British lance corporals, William Schofield and Tom Blake, are ordered by General Ehrenmoor to carry a message to Colonel Mackenzie of the 2nd Battalion of the Devonshire Regiment, calling off a scheduled attack the next morning that would jeopardize the lives of 1,600 men, including Blake's brother Joseph. Schofield and Blake cross no man's land to reach the abandoned German trenches, but Schofield injures his left hand along the way. In an underground barracks, they discovered a tripwire set by the Germans, which is promptly triggered by a rat. The explosion almost kills Schofield, but Blake saves him, and the two escape. They arrive at an abandoned farmhouse where a German plane is shot down in a dogfight with Allied aircraft. Schofield and Blake save the burnt pilot, but the pilot stabs Blake and is shot dead by Schofield. Schofield comforts Blake as he dies, promising to complete the mission and to write to Blake's mother. Taking Blake's rings and dog tag, as well as Aaron Moore's letter, he is picked up by a passing British unit. All right, so this movie opens. Blake and Schofield are taking a nap
By a tree.
and Schofield is leaning up said tree, and you should pay attention to that because, well, you know what? Fuck everyone. That's how it ends.
Even one step further. So it opens with Blake napping and then Schofield resting against a tree. And then when the sergeant comes in and he tells him Blake to pick a man, Schofield is picked up by Blake with his hand. And the movie ends with Blake's brother shaking Schofield's hand. And then he goes and sits down by the tree.
So we meet these two characters. They've been picked for, or one of them has been picked for a mission. And then Blake picks Schofield. They go in and talk to the colonel.
The general.
The general, which is Colin Firth. Always a delight with Colin Firth. And he tells them, you know what, our group of soldiers over here, they're walking into a trap. You guys have about 8 hours to get down there and give them this letter to call this off. If you don't, it will be a massacre.
Also, Blake's brother is among the ones that could be massacred. So he has urgency.
Yes, and which I got to tell you again, kind of gave me a Saving Private Ryan vibe.
Now, do you know why this movie is set specifically April 6, 1917?
The Hindenburg line of which they're referring to doesn't necessarily happen until a couple of months later.
Yeah, but the date is actually when the Americans, when the USA entered the war. So they didn't know that the Americans had announced that they're joining. So it just goes to show it was another day in the war for them, the day the Americans joined.
Interesting. Did you find yourself looking at the backdrop as they move through the trenches?
Yeah, I kind of followed around and was looking at what the other characters were doing and
How things looked?
And thinking to myself, God, if someone sneezed or farted or did something wrong, they'd either have to push through it or they'd have to reset and go again.
Yeah, that is certainly one of the setbacks that encountered the production. There were some scenes that had challenges because it's minutes long per take, and it could be anything along the way. Maybe one of the production crew stumbles and trips. Maybe somebody missed their cue. Maybe there's a whole myriad of things that would happen.
There were actually a few things that did happen. Extras tripping in the background, things falling over, things like that. And the director just kept it in because he felt it added realism to it. There's a scene later on that we'll talk about in the movie where people are tripping and the director just kept it in.
Yeah, you're talking about the ridge line.
Yeah, where he's running
He
across the
runs into an
battlefield and he
extra, yeah.
runs into people, and they just said, leave it.
Which is funny because when it happened while I was watching it, I thought, oh, I bet you that wasn't supposed to happen. But yeah, anyways, always in the back of my mind, God, how long did this take? I wonder what shooting was like. They had to rehearse everything. They had everything down to a T. They built their sets based on the dialogue. So if for however long it took to walk from A to B and have this dialogue, that's how long the set was.
Did you read how many feet of trenches they dug?
5,200.
It was about, I think it was around there. It was almost a mile. It was just under a mile of trenches that they dug for this movie.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, they had heavy machinery to do it, so I guess it's not that crazy. So,
Trench life for the British was a lot different than the German. The Germans had a sense that this could be a long time, and so they made their encampments a lot more accommodating. Some of their trenches had electricity, and as we saw, they had underground bunk beds set up. And the British thought that this was going to be over in 4 months, whereas it ended up taking 4 years for it to be resolved.
Yeah, they thought it was going to be over by Christmas. That's what they kind of allude to in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. So we get this really long scene called a movie, and we're following these characters, and now we've gotten the orders. They're making their way through the trenches. You get to meet all the different people that they meet going through here. And then they get up, and now they got to go through no man's land.
So basically, it's kind of a story about two smaller people than normal soldiers who have to go behind enemy lines to deliver a precious note so that they can stop the bad guys. Is that kind of what the sum of it is?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think you're talking about Lord of the Rings.
Oh, gosh,
and,
yes.
And I'm talking about this new action thriller called 1917. So
even though we have, Burke, who kind of, Bilbo, and Schofield,
it's Blake.
Samwise, I don't know.
Yeah, but Frodo or Bilbo never died.
Frodo did get stabbed in the stomach, and Samwise did take up the ring because he thought that Frodo was dead.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose. So are you calling Sam Mendes a ripoff artist?
No, I wouldn't, because what did Tolkien base Lord of the Rings on?
Oh, I don't give a shit. You are comparing Lord of the Rings to 1917, so let's talk about that.
But 1917...
So are you calling Sam Mendes a ripoff artist?
No.
Okay,
I am
just
not.
making sure.
The reason is Tolkien based his, the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and all that off of his time while he was in World War I.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
really, World War I is Lord of the Rings. So a lot of you should expect a lot of similarities. And this story, yes, has a similar storyline to Lord of the Rings, but it works in this movie.
Well, Sam Mendes' father, as we see in the end credits, he is credited for telling the stories. His grandfather was 5'4", and so because he was a shorter person, this was very advantageous to have information get traveled back and forth. During World War I, it was only pretty much by word of mouth and notes. And the trenches commonly would be maybe 5'7", 5'8". Fog sometimes could be up to 6 feet. So Sam Mendes' grandfather, being 5'4", he could run very quickly, if you will, without having to worry about being hunched over. And so he was considered to be a prime person for delivering messages. But he didn't share any of these stories until he was in his 70s. After he got back home from World War I, I think he was like 18, 20 years old. Didn't talk about it.
He joined at 17.
Yeah, he didn't talk about it for over 50 years.
Do you think that maybe his grandfather was the inspiration for Bilbo?
No.
What if he knew Tolkien?
I don't know.
Can we get off this?
I'm just curious.
Jesus.
So they get across no man's land, and then this is where they go down into the German bunkers, right? Mm-hmm. And then they find that big, large room.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting. I was reading up on, how much I love rats.
Yes.
And I was reading up on them. I guess during World War I and during wartime, rats tend to feed off of the dead corpses. And they can actually get to the size of cats.
Oh, Could you imagine?
And so that was a common thing to see very large rats running around in these trenches and these bunkers.
And going back and thinking about this movie and trying to put yourself in the character's shoes, if you will, can you imagine if, Colin Firth sends these guys off to go save the 1600
Middle
men,
Earth.
to go save Middle Earth. And then 5 days later, they get another intelligence that says, oh, no, wait, you guys should attack. And so now you got 2 more guys that are 5 days behind him. God, that would suck.
Another way that they would pass notes, they would also use dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you see the dead dog on the side in the at the barnyard?
Yeah,
or the
at
farmhouse.
The farmhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that. That makes sense now because, they did use dogs for notes.
They used them also to train to kill rats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And rats were such a prevalent problem that rats would even come up and they'd steal food right from your hand.
Yeah.
But the director did say no rats were harmed during the filming of this movie.
The story that Blake gives about the hair gel,
Yeah.
that's based on somebody's true account of that happened to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And that comes after they dig him out of the all the rubble.
What'd you guys think of No Man's Land? Wasn't that just crazy crossing?
Yeah, I felt a lot of tension. I was expecting the other shoe to drop at any minute, like a gun would fire or someone would get shot or something.
Because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it being one continuous shot.
God,
it just...
That beautiful shot across that huge crater when we go across the water.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. So gorgeous.
I was thinking to myself, and again, this takes me out of it, but for that split second, but I'm like, fuck, how are they doing it? Right. And then I thought, I bet you they're using like the NFL does. They run it on wires.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the techniques. And another one was they built this rig for their cranes that the camera sits on the crane, they roll with it, and then 2 grips can come up, lift it up using a pole and run with it and put it on another crane to continue with this continuous shot. And I'm just saying, fuck, that's pretty cool. But
they had another camera that they used. They referred to it as a dragonfly. The dragonfly camera is a camera stand that is held in your hand. It's probably like maybe twice the size of our microphone stand, and the camera is mounted on top of it. And so the camera is controlled by Deakins. What's his name? His name is Roger Deakins. He is someplace else, and he's controlling where the camera is looking, whether it's going sideways or forward. And so the person just has to carry it, and so that's how they can move through the tight crowds of people sometimes, is because the guy just has to walk holding the camera.
Can I throw in a quick trivia question?
Sure.
So Roger Deakins, who I believe was the director of cinematography or photography, what other movie was he the director of cinematography on that we have reviewed?
That we've reviewed?
That we have reviewed.
The Big Lebowski.
Well, there you go, Professor. That's why he is the professor.
Well, no
he didn't
shit.
even give you a chance.
I didn't even get a chance. That's all right.
Yeah, so he was also on The Big Lebowski. He's done a lot of Coen films.
We get to see the 2 biplanes when they dive into that crater, and then we get to see the airplanes again when they're walking along towards the cherry orchard.
Right.
But then we get something else that we learn a little bit more about, which I thought was it helps develop the characters a little bit more. So Blake, he is somebody that he's curious about how do we find food and stuff like that. But it's gradually revealed that Schofield, he is somebody that's been around more because he was involved in the Battle of Somme, and he's talking about his medal. Why'd you give your medal away?
Right.
And it's during that time that we learned that he's a lot more experienced than Blake is as a soldier because he was at this other battle.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like that initially Blake seems to be, because he's more gregarious and outgoing than Schofield, who is a lot more demure and closed.
Right. And I felt that too, is before they got up and out, Schofield says, age before beauty. Right. So we knew that Schofield's older, kind of the more mature one. And he kind of shows it when they start taking off to go on this mission right away, and he's all, wait a minute, let's talk about this for a second, right?
Right.
But Blake is fueled by emotional, and that's his brother, so that's what's driving him.
He is driven.
Yeah, I can totally see where you see
one
that.
point that you just brought up is interesting because it actually foreshadows something that happens in the end of the movie. Per their discussion, when they're talking about metals and why did he trade his metal for a bottle of wine, he makes a comment that it's only a piece of tin, so it's not worth anything. But later on in the movie, and we'll get to this point, tin saves the mission.
Tin saves the mission?
Tin is responsible for saving the mission.
Because the letter was in his tin
Was in a
thingamadoodle?
tin box when he fell into the river, and he was able to keep it dry and keep it clear.
So yeah, let's get to this farmhouse. So this is kind of where I had my first, maybe not my first, but I kind of had issues with this scene. I didn't see them killing off Blake so quick. And
He dies before the movie's even halfway over.
I know, and I was thinking, wait, that's his brother. He's supposed to be on this
And
mission.
he's the driving force.
Right.
He's the
it's-
one that's supposed to survive. It's usually the other guy that gets killed.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so when the plane lands and crashes, thank you,
conveniently in the farmhouse that they're standing.
and hits the convenient post as not to run them over.
Yeah.
I know this is so horrible of myself, but it is times of war. Why not just shoot the pilot in the head?
Ironically, Blake chooses to spare the pilot's life.
Yeah.
Now, this
And-
isn't the first time he's screwed up like that because he spared the rat's life as well. He's shown that he is hesitant in killing. And
That's a good point, I suppose.
My thought was you're absolutely right. Why not shoot the pilot? Because it is wartime. What happy ending did he think he was going to get out of saving the pilot's life?
I have no idea. Don't know where that guy's head was.
Yeah. What do you think, Ken?
I thought that he just didn't necessarily have a stomach for doing the necessary deed of killing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like I said, he wouldn't even kill the rats earlier.
Yeah. And so now Blake dies, and I didn't see that come in, and now it's all on Schofield's hands. And then out of the blue, all these other soldiers show up. Where the fuck they come from?
We didn't even hear them come into the scene. Like, you think you would have heard the cars, the vehicles, the soldiers marching in the mud. Something. And then all of a sudden, they're just all over the place.
Yeah, and all of a sudden there's this colonel there talking to this dude.
I took it as you have the burning barn behind them, and that muffled the sound of the approaching convoy.
It just seemed really sudden to me. You know what it did remind me of is the ending of The Mist. Do you ever see The Mist?
I don't remember. No, I read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how the book ends, but the movie ends with the dude
I
shooting
remember the
everyone,
ending.
and
Yeah,
then the military comes
shows
up 2 seconds later,
Yeah.
right? That's what I thought here. I thought, oh man, Blake just died, and now all of a sudden these guys show up. And
The only thing I could think of is that they were putting us a little bit in Schofield's head, that he's a little bit shell-shocked at this moment. He's focused on, the fact that Blake's dying, and we don't hear the army come up, the soldiers come up, because he doesn't hear them. He's so focused on Blake. And so that's the only reason I could think of why we didn't hear these soldiers come in.
Yeah, I mean that's always that's always a possibility. But it is nice that they did show up because now they have a vehicle, and I keep expecting the people that Schofield and Blake meet along the way, I keep expecting them to just fuck them somehow, right? It's wartime and people are assholes. And that's what I kept thinking. I kept thinking like Max Strong makes an appearance here, the guy from Shazam and Green Lantern and, a lot of good films.
I loved how he came into frame.
Yeah. It was really, it was a nice shot, and I keep expecting these guys to be assholes, and when they're not, I'm pleasantly surprised, right? So now they're going to give Schofield a lift, and the truck gets stuck in the mud, and they want to go get a branch or a tree to get him out, and he's like, no, I don't have time for this. This is a super important mission, explains it to everybody on the truck, and they get the truck going, and then they have that moment, right? We'll help you.
I do want to give Sam Mendes a call out here, a lot of credit. A lot of times in these war movies, especially in World War I movies, the fact that Pakistanis and Indians were involved in the war, they had over 1 million soldiers helping the Allies in it. And you don't see that in other World War or war movies. The fact that they were helping out over 100,000 Africans were helping out the Allies in these, at these times.
Sure.
And he makes it a point to show one on the truck, show the Indian on the truck with the other men.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a great thing to do.
Yeah, well, he's got to do something to make up for the fact that he's ripping Tolkien off. So, it's fine.
Can I go back to Blake's death?
I suppose.
Two things about Blake's death. First thing, I thought it was so beautifully shot watching him die, because we are forced to watch it along with Schofield. And I was very surprised to hear that the actor playing Blake, he was so into his role that the paleness in his face was not digitally altered.
Yeah, I heard that too.
His face drained of all color. And first thing I thought, oh, that's makeup or that's some kind of
CGI.
effect. No, I think you're absolutely right. He did that on his own.
Right, yeah. It couldn't have been makeup because it's one continuous shot. It would have had to have been CGI, but it wasn't. So, yeah, no, that was a gut-wrenching scene, and I was sad to see that character go. But you know what? Time moves on, and so do we.
I got to say, that was one of the biggest curveballs that I saw this movie. And again, like I've said this before in previous ones, I love when I don't see something coming.
There's another important point that happens when we meet Mark Strong's character.
Is there?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
There is the last thing that he says when he drops Schofield off is make sure that there are witnesses. And this is planting the seed that maybe he delivers it, but the orders aren't followed.
Right. And how many war movies or thrillers have we seen where the main guy will not give up power? Right? He'll say, fuck that.
Right. Because, wartime is crazy time.
Right.
I also want to call out the whole moment when Schofield is... I am so behind his passion in the pushing of the truck to get it out of the mud. Everybody's just standing around and he's pushing with all of his might, and he refuses to give in and surrender, and he just won't give up. And I felt so strongly for him how hard he was pushing to get that truck out of the mud, and then eventually they get it moving. He is so driven at this point.
I liked the character change that, if you notice in the beginning, he wasn't really behind the mission. He was like, why don't we just sleep and we'll do it a little bit later, or shouldn't we take a break? Or, as soon as Blake died, it became his passion. It became, he's got to get this done, and he's got to get that note delivered.
Well, yeah, he just watched his friend die, man.
Yeah.
So
and that's the enduring thing that carries Schofield through, is his promise to Blake, not necessarily to deliver the orders, but his promise to Blake. That is what pushes him.
Yeah.
The other interesting, I thought, and again foreshadowing, when Schofield finds the milk. And it's so surprising. He finds this milk, and you're thinking, okay,
it's
great.
so odd.
He finds this milk, and you don't realize that's going to play an important role later on.
I wouldn't go so far as to call it important.
Well,
but
they said the baby
it
wouldn't eat or drink anything. The baby only wanted milk.
Well, here's the thing. We didn't need the baby or the milk.
Yeah.
So that's just me. A destroyed canal bridge prevents the British unit from crossing, and Schofield chooses to part with them. He uses what is left of the bridge to cross alone and comes under fire from a sniper. Exchanging shots, Schofield wounds the sniper and advances upon where he and the sniper shoot each other simultaneously. The sniper is killed, while Schofield is struck in the helmet and knocked unconscious. He awakens at night and makes his way through the flare-lit ruins of the town. After evading a German soldier, he discovers a French woman hiding with an infant. She treats his wounds, and he gives her his canned food and milk from the farm. Despite her pleas, Schofield leaves after hearing the chimes of a nearby clock and realizing that his time is running out. Encountering German soldiers, he strangles one to death and escapes pursuit by jumping into a river. The river carries him while the cherry blossoms fall. He is swept over a waterfall before reaching the riverbank. In the forest, he finds D Company of the 2nd Devons, which is the last wave of the attack, and the company starts to move toward the front. Schofield tries to reach Colonel Mackenzie. Realizing that the trenches are too crowded for him to make it to Mackenzie in time, Schofield goes over the top and sprints on the open battlefield parallel to the British trench line, just as the infantry begins its charge. He forces his way in to meet Mackenzie, who reads the message and reluctantly calls off the attack. Schofield then finds Joseph, who was among the first wave and is bloodied but is unharmed. Schofield tells Joseph of his mission and that his brother Tom has died, passing on Tom's rings and dog tags. Joseph is deeply upset about his brother, but thanks Schofield for his efforts. Exhausted, Schofield sits under a nearby tree looking at photographs of his wife and children. End movie. I don't want to start at the end, but are we sure that's his wife and kids? I thought it was his mom and sisters.
It's alluded to oh so briefly once. Not that he has children, but that he has people back home. When he's talking about why
His medals, yeah.
he found it too difficult to have to say goodbye to them.
It's also alluded to again when he's with that French woman and she asks him, do you have a wife and children? And he never answers it. And so him at that tree looking at that picture is supposed to be the answer to that question.
Okay. I thought it was his mom, so.
Well, you were wrong.
No, I don't think I am. I think you guys are reading too much into it because it's not that fucking important. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so he leaves the people that gave him a ride. Now he's on his own again. And this I think is the biggest. This is where I saw the biggest similarities to Lord of the Rings, the movies. Just the way the town was set up. It looked like when they invade in Two Towers, right? Mm-hmm. But anyways, he's making his way through the town, and what I found out later after watching it is that all these scenes were lit by flares. And
flares on wires.
And you never see that in a film, right? Lighting is so crucial and so important to a film that, I mean, it took a lot of guts and a tremendous amount of preparation to pull off what they were pulling off because they lit the entire thing by flares, which was fucking amazing.
All of those long shadows coming through the windows when the flares would go over, as the shadows would rise up and envelop him in the night again, it was menacing.
Yeah, they built little miniatures and then they built this lighting system that would show them precisely what the flare would look like, how long it stayed in the sky, how long you had before it passed overhead, this, that, and the other. So again, just the amount of preparation going into this was pretty phenomenal.
Question for you. You're coming off that bridge and you're being shot at. Are you going to run at the sniper?
Well, he gets a couple of shots off and it doesn't look like he hit anything, but I knew because of, movie convenience, he probably wounded him. And I think you have to go confirm the kill.
My thought was he's running this building. Is there other soldiers in there? I did read later on that it was common practice when the Germans pulled back to leave one or two people in sniper nests. Yeah. So maybe he just knew that it was probably just one person, but I'm thinking he's running that building. There could be other soldiers in there, as well as that sniper could just be down waiting for him.
Yeah, and the way that the sniper was shooting at him, I couldn't tell where the sniper was coming from, and where it finally does show up doesn't physically make any sense to me. Because it kept hitting the side of the bridge.
I thought it was because of ricochets.
Oh, maybe. I didn't even think about that. But, yeah, maybe.
So, and for a sniper, he was a bad shot.
That was another thing I was thinking.
That's what I thought, too.
Another stormtrooper. So he goes in, and I think...
So they stole from that movie, too, is what you're saying?
No, apparently everybody shoots like a stormtrooper. Okay. I don't know if that's stealing or not.
Well, Schofield doesn't.
There you go.
Yeah.
So he gets up there, and I think I probably saw this scene in the trailer, but it kind of, I knew it was coming, and I knew it was going to happen, but when it happened, it actually kind of startled me, is when he kicks the door open, and then the German shoots him, and then he shoots the German, and then that's where you get your very first hard cut of this film.
Who shot
first? And it goes
first?
to blink. Han, dude. Han always shot first.
I thought Han shot first.
Okay.
So yeah, you get your first hard cut of the movie, and this scene, though I could tell what was going on through the sound, but I couldn't see anything. So I just assumed that he was making his way up the stairs. Does he make his way up the stairs, or does he go down the stairs?
He gets upstairs, he opens the door, and both guns go off.
No, I'm talking afterwards. After he gets shot.
Afterwards. He goes back down.
Oh no, he crawls back up the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
Then why does the camera push out the window and he's on the ground already?
All I know is that the camera and Schofield part, and then he is on the road, or he is down below on ground level again.
Yeah, so because it was so dark, I just assumed he was walking downstairs.
Maybe the
but
camera went upstairs while he was going down.
Well, probably.
My thought too was, and I really liked the way they cut this because again, they're going with real time. You get knocked out, you wake up, it's almost instant. You know, you don't realize how much time has passed. So they don't give us any indication of how much time's passed, except that it's dark now. And I did kind of also feel, again, if they were going for giving us kind of a look into the mind and the feeling of Schofield, you know, he's easily got a concussion now. And when you have a concussion, you can lose passages of time. You can lose, you know, little bits of feeling. So he may have gone up the stairs and then gone back out, but he may not even remember going down the stairs. So maybe they were kind of giving us that impression.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe they're just kind of giving us that confused, dazed, you know, this is kind of what's happening.
Yeah, or maybe it was just too dark and I couldn't tell what was going on, and is what it is.
Yeah,
Or
it was written that way.
It was so impressive how that looked. Dennis Gassner, he was the production person, and I am just so floored with how otherworldly it looked going through that town.
Yeah, and that was all built on a soundstage, so that was pretty cool.
Now, getting to the French woman part where he rolls into the window after he's being chased, rolls in the window and finds the French woman and the baby, you know, one of our first real down times in this movie, besides kind of the farm a little bit. You didn't think that part was necessary?
No, not really. I think it slowed us down, and
Didn't you want a break?
no, not necessarily. I was ready for it to be over.
I just thought it was nice to have a little bit of downtime. A little bit didn't make sense, but again, they were going for, you know, the short stories and the stories that were told. It was common to find people who were taking shelter in buildings. She didn't know who the soldier was coming in, but yet she still took the time to put pressure on his wound and take care of him and then ask him not to leave.
Yeah, well, he left anyway.
Yeah. So my thought was, now that he got his mission accomplished, do you think he ever went back and looked for her?
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what he did.
You're just being sarcastic.
What gave you your first clue, buddy?
So I thought the camera work in this little basement area was gorgeous. Watching the slow movement of the camera going around Schofield. Why is there no shadow on his face with the camera work? You know, it is fantastic that we should see a shadow from the cameraman because the boiler is behind him and in lighting up his face, and yet we move around him. I thought that was just brilliant.
Yeah, they probably digitally took out the shadows if there were any in any of the part, but they did purposely film it the way they did to avoid the shadows. And typically when you break the line and you do a 360-degree turn, you're gonna get shadows. So I bet you in the tight corridors with those ones, I bet you they were digitally removed. I bet you a lot of that was digital.
The one thing that, I mean, I know you weren't a big fan of the scene, but the one thing that bothered me about this scene is as I was watching it and they're having their little conversation, I'm thinking, you got German soldiers walking around looking for you and your guys are making all that noise.
Well, I guess it's all relative to where they are, really.
Yeah.
Right? Or where they, because she's been, it made it seem like she's been there for a little bit. And so the baby's going to cry at some point.
Yeah.
So, you know.
That's what I thought too. Now, John, I don't know if you heard it or not. The chiming of the bell tower.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to hear that when you were watching? Don,
Yep.
Were you able to hear that when you were watching?
I watch everything with captions. So captions told me that the bells were ringing. I think I heard one or two of them.
And that's what told him he needed to get going.
Yes. I'm sure that, you know, Schofield would have loved to have just stay here and just rest and be tranquil and happy. And he is warm and momentarily safe. And then he is called back into duty with the chiming of that bells and knowing that there is an imminent battle that is going to destroy 1,000 soldiers, if not, more. Right. And it pulls him back in and off he goes.
And this is where she tells, the French gal tells him about the river that'll take him all the way into where he needs to go. Mm-hmm. And so he makes a break for it. He starts running. I swear to God, this guy's always running for his life, right?
Well,
and everyone's shooting at him. He's running.
Did it bother you that he was running specifically in the middle of the area where it was most well lit? I kept thinking if he just ran a little closer to the wall, it was darker next to the walls. He could have slipped by a little bit.
Yeah, but the guy with the Steadicam wouldn't have been able to. So they had to make sure that
he was easily
seen. No, that scene alone, I think they had 3 different cameras on them. One of them was one of the ones that we talked about earlier where they took it off a crane, ran with him, put it back on a crane, and then sometimes it would have to be on a lot of the running shots, they'd have to put the camera on a car or a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And but this is one of those places where I knew they made a cut, because when he jumps off the fucking bridge and lands into the water, everything's a mess on the screen. So you can easily digitize that and make that a cut scene, right? So it was little instances like that I was going, oh, there's another cut. Oh, there's another cut. But, overall, it was fucking seamless. And so now he's in this river and he's floating down. And
then we get the cherry blossoms and then
falling on his face.
Another moment of serenity.
Yeah. And then he arrives where he needs to be.
Is this where he had to climb over the dead bodies?
Yeah, yes. This was this. You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But still, it's never easy to watch. And I kept thinking to myself, why doesn't he just swim around? Why is he going over the dead bodies?
While they were filming this, they actually had to alert the locals not to be disturbed if they saw dead bodies floating in the river.
I wonder how much the extra got paid for laying in the water all day. All right, so he climbs over these dead bodies, and then we stumble upon...
Well, and then he breaks down, right?
Oh, yeah, he cries. Boo-hoo-hoo.
He's exhausted. Can't go on.
Well, he's emotionally and mentally broken at this point.
Could you imagine? I mean, just going back to him almost getting buried alive. Right, he's probably still trying to process with that, and then he loses his friend.
Well, the worst part is he's got a cut on his hand still, and that's going to get infected.
Oh my God! Yeah, so he gets a cut on his hand, then he almost gets buried alive, and then he loses his friend, and then he meets a chick with a baby who he wants to start a family with.
In the meantime, he got shot in the head.
Yeah, he got knocked out when he got shot in the helmet.
He got shot in the helmet.
Then what was the wound that the girl was dressing?
When he fell down the stairs.
Yeah, and he cut the back of his head.
Yeah, he hit his. That's how I took it. He knocked his head really good on the stairs as he went backwards. So
shot in the head, hit in the helmet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
But I'm thinking he's got, honestly, he's got the cut on his hand and the other wounds and everything, and he's in that water and the dead bodies. Do you know what kind of diseases and bacteria and everything in there?
Plus the rats.
And I'm thinking he's going to get out of there, but it's going to be kind of like Atonement, where you get anything in those wounds back then, and you're pretty much a walking dead man.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, totally. But no, he stumbles upon the 2nd D unit, and they're having a kumbaya moment. And this is where I thought, more fucking singing? Did John pick this movie? And I had to realize, no, it was the professor. This is the professor's movie. Now the professor is picking musicals. So thank you for that, buddy.
You're welcome. I thought this was so beautifully shot as we come in and you see all of those soldiers sitting completely still. And it's like, what is going on? But we hear the song coming in and we can't see who's singing. And then eventually George slumps down just exhausted and he just rests against the tree. And then we start moving our way through the different soldiers. And as we move through the different soldiers, now we can see the soldier who's doing the singing.
Wasn't that Pippin singing Edge of Night? Or no, I'm sorry, that's wrong.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure you're right, dude.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was Pippin, and he was singing that song.
That song that he sang in Lord of the Rings.
Wait, what are we talking about?
I'm sorry, no. He was singing Wayfaring Stranger was the name of the song. But and I'm sorry to interrupt, Professor, but
no, he's not.
My one issue, and again, little issues here and there, but my issue with this scene was nobody seems to even give him a second glance. This guy in disheveled, wet, obviously out of his mind at this point, just stumbles into right where they are and almost passes out, and nobody even just notices.
No, yeah, nobody fucking turns around and notices him. He was stepping
He's
on
in the
branches.
very back.
He's stepping on branches. He's walking up on
I'd
people.
be worried about German soldiers sneaking up on them.
Allow me
Because
to
there's just one over in the town, just
allow
across
me
the
to
river.
continue my point.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So after the camera leaves the singer, then we see all of the faces of these young soldiers. And what has got to be on the mind on all of these young soldiers is that they are most likely facing death. And what is the likelihood that they are going to live through the next few hours? That has got to be weighing heavily on their minds. And I think that everybody, as we move through those different young men, that we see that they are all faced with the very real possibility that they may not live through the day. Or if they do live through the day, what do those aid stations that they have seen before look like, where you have people with limbs missing?
Yeah.
And these soldiers are alone in their thoughts as to what's coming next. And then finally the camera just moves, and we see that Schofield is just one of these soldiers, and any one of these soldiers could be just like Schofield.
Sure.
Gorgeous shot.
And then they figure out, Schofield figures out where he's at. This is where he needs to be. And then the search is on for Colonel Mackenzie, and he runs to guy after guy. And he finds out that the offense has already started, right? So, I mean,
The first wave has gone in.
The first wave has already gone out. And so now he's really under the gun, and he's trying to find him. And he fights his way, and he makes it to Colonel Mackenzie. And he didn't.
Well, first he had to jump up and run across the battlefield.
Oh,
to
that's
get to
right. Because
Mackenzie.
he had to go through the barracks, and there was too many people. So
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, why not just jump up and run across? And he does, and it was a great shot. And this is the scene where he runs into an extra, and the Sam Mendes just kept it because it fits. But no, this is a powerful shot, and the score that's coming in with it, and just the sheer determination. This dude is hauling ass, right? What I didn't understand at first is when he gets up there, he kind of walks, and then he takes off, right? If it were me, I would have got up there and just started running my ass off, right? But, so he does. He makes it to Mackenzie, and he goes in there, gives his spiel.
His order from
After
the general.
fighting
Right.
his way in there, they wouldn't even let him in.
Right. He had to fight his way in by any means necessary, and he did it. And he didn't need to worry about there being an audience, because there were, and there was a bunch of people there. And I'm thinking to myself this whole time, just read the fucking letter, Doctor Strange. That's all you got to do is read the fucking letter. And
Well, he's
finally
not a
he
rule
does.
follower.
Well, there's that. And he finally does, and he tells them all to stand down. And at that moment was probably the first time in the film that I actually took a breath with Schofield. Because even when he was with the French chick, there's always a uncertainty, right? A German soldier could have came in at any minute and ruined that parade. But this was the first time where he had completed his mission, and he could actually take a real breath.
A momentary sense of relief.
Yeah, and then he realizes, oh shit, I got one more thing to do.
Yeah,
Right.
my initial thought was, okay, great. He got him to stop the advance, to stop the soldiers from going in, but that first wave has already gone out. So basically now, not only are they out there fighting, but they're not going to have anybody coming up behind them to back them up. So you can't really call them back because they're already out.
They were all coming back.
So they're all just going to get wiped out. The ones that were running out into the field.
I don't know. You saw a lot of bodies coming over the berm of the trench line as Schofield is working his way along the trench. There were definitely bodies that were pouring back over, wounded.
What do you think of the as Schofield is going across trying to get to the general of the, I think it was a general he came across or some captain he comes across who's crying and just has basically lost his mind.
Oh, that reminded me of another movie where that happens, but I can't.
Lord of the Rings?
No, it wasn't fucking Lord of the Rings, Dick. It was
Platoon?
maybe.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some more movies out there where the head guy in charge just
PTSD, post-traumatic stress.
he just breaks down and can't be in charge.
There was over, I guess.
I mean, Aliens. It happens in Aliens, right?
during,
yeah.
Those are your men, Corbin.
I read that during World War I, there was over 300 soldiers who, for whatever reason, refused to fight. And a lot of them were like this gentleman who breaks down, just loses his mind, breaks down in tears and everything. And they executed most of those soldiers for not fighting. But later on, they gave them pardons posthumously. They pardoned these people who they didn't realize at that time what PTSD was.
Oh, that sucks because they still killed him.
Yeah, they killed them, but yeah.
When we were waiting for the colonel to call the attack off, did you think that he was going to call the attack off?
I thought he was looking for a reason not to call the attack off.
I thought it was going to be 50. There was a 50-50 chance, right? I in my head, I could see him saying lieutenant or
escort
general.
this soldier out.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Diane.
Where proceed as instructed or proceed as or follow as instructed. But when he said, pull him back, then you're like, oh, okay. So he did listen.
Yeah, I did think, and I was remembering back to when the guy said, make sure you have witnesses, that, and, first he was kind of fighting it and he was kind of like not wanting to call back. And you kind of got the feeling like he's looking around the room that, can I get away with continuing it? Or now that everybody's heard that I've been ordered to call it off, I guess I have to call it off.
I don't know about all that. I was just glad that he called it off.
Yeah,
Totally.
And that's why I was thinking, 2 days later, someone else comes down and says, just kidding. We have to attack.
That's what he kind of said in his quote of, that, 2 days from now, they're going to tell me to attack.
Right. But,
And they actually did, they did push through that line. I think it took them till 1919 is when they actually got through the German line.
oh, yeah.
But they did end up having to advance.
So now he has one thing left to do. He wants to go find Blake's brother.
No small task. Looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. And he runs around going, Blake. And he finds him.
Richard Madden.
Yeah. Was it Rob Stark?
Yep, Rob Stark.
So I have to say this moment was probably one of the only moments in the film that actually made me feel something for these guys. This was a touching moment, and they did a good job selling it. I felt bad that he lost his brother,
Especially when he says, "Oh, my brother's here. Where's my brother?"
Yeah, totally.
That's what hit me.
It kind of reminded me of when Luke says, "Where's Han?" But it was a genuine moment, and it was a really good scene. And like I said, it was the first time that I felt a whole lot for these characters.
Yeah, Lieutenant Blake's eyes totally sold that moment that he has been told about his brother passing.
Yeah.
And the other moment that I just thought helped drive that point home as to how broken, there's two of them. One, the way he continues to hold his left hand out with the dog tag and rings, and the hand just stays out there, even though he's just standing there by himself. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is he asks Schofield for his name twice, right? And who are you, right? But then he asks again a few moments later, what's your name again, right? I just thought it was delivered so beautifully.
Yeah.
So that scene, they shot it at least 20 times, and they ended up using the first take.
Yeah. So he delivers the bad news, and then he has completed all of his missions, and he just gets to be a soldier again. And now he finds himself with a moment or two. And so as he's walking to this tree, I was thinking to myself, oh, they're going to end it just like they began it. And they did. He sat down, closed his eyes, or looked at his pictures, and then the movie was over.
Do you know the story behind the tree that he leans against at the end?
I know a couple of things about it.
Apparently, the extras in the movie claimed that the toilets were too far to get to between filming takes.
You know how guys are. They don't just pee in an open field.
So they didn't realize that they were peeing on that tree that he was leaning up against. It was covered in urine.
They weren't told the significance of the tree, so they didn't want to take the long trip to the porta potty. They just went over to the other side of the tree.
Right.
So when I'd kind of read that before the end of the movie, and all I could think about when he was leaning up against that tree, looking at that picture, is, ew.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what you were thinking. Yeah, I didn't know that. Interesting tidbit.
The second point that I was going to make about the tree was that we have Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins, when they were scouting the different landscapes and looking, they both saw the tree and said, like, we have to end at the tree because that's where the movie started.
Yeah, they were going for bookends is what they were going for. They wanted to start at a tree and end at a tree.
The scene when they first, Blake and Schofield go up into no man's land, that scene, they shot it at least 40, maybe 50 times. Somewhere along the way, something would go wrong. The flare gun wouldn't go into Blake's pocket. The cigarette lighter wouldn't light. Somebody would stumble. And so they ended up having to shoot it again and again.
They spent a full day
and
just
again.
because of the cigarette lighting.
Well, it was among other things, right? That was the problem of a longer take, having so many little things that could go wrong. Everything has to go exactly right.
Yeah, I mean that's why you rehearse for 6 months prior to it. But when you're on the day and it comes down to it, I mean you got to nail it or you do it again.
So both of you like to make movies. Would you ever try to make a single take movie?
You mean as an honest single take or using editing?
Either like this movie or like the take in Goodfellas.
I don't think you could do an entire movie. I don't think you could do
You're
an
not up for that
entire
challenge?
Too many things can go wrong.
Too many things. I think that if you plan it out and you are smart about it
And you rehearse.
and you do it just like Sam Mendes did it, I think it can certainly be done. It was a new way of telling a story. I enjoyed it. But you know, for me, I sat there and tried to find where all the cuts were, which took me out of it a little bit.
The movie John Wick 3 that we have just recently reviewed, I was referring to the knife fight that John Wick has in that little museum place, and I said there were 40-something cuts that were used for the sequence, but the camera was backed up, and I thought that was really impressive. This movie has 40-something
48
blends, as they call them. So impressive that one scene has 40-something cuts, and then this movie has that for the entire movie.
Yeah, 48 edits, the whole entire movie.
I also was so impressed with the musical score. The music was so gorgeous, having like when he's going through the town, and he's frantically running from the gunfire, trying to hide. Gosh, the music is just so beautiful. I was so impressed with the music, and I thought that it is something that they worked very, very hard on for the music to be what it needed to be to help convey, to help propel, to help give a more of a soulistic experience in the movie. I thought it was done very, very well.
Yeah, the music was on an epic scale to match the picture that it was accompanying, and yeah, I thought the music was exactly what I expected it to be. Yeah. So
for me, it blended just right because sometimes, the music takes you out of a movie, so you don't, you hear the music and you don't pay attention to what's going on, or sometimes you pay attention and you don't even notice the music. To me, they blended seamlessly.
Yeah. All right, you guys ready to rate this bitch?
I'm ready to rate.
All right, Professor, how do we rate our movies?
We rate our movies on a scale of 1 to 5. A 5 is a movie that you're ready to turn around and watch right now. You've just walked out of the theater. Man, I'm ready to watch that movie right now. That's going to be a 5. A 1 is a movie where I saw it. I don't need to see it again. I don't want to see it again. And a 3 is going to be somewhere in the middle. You're ready to watch it again sometime, and maybe somebody else wants to see it. Yeah, okay. And you have some movies that you just never ever want to see again, and you are mad about it because you had to see it in the first place, and you feel like somebody owes you 2 hours of your life back.
And that's a 0.
That's a 0. We haven't given one of those out yet.
No,
You
but
came close on a couple of my picks.
Yeah, well, can you blame me?
Yeah.
Why? All right, Professor, your movie, you're up.
All right. Well, as I stated before, I thought that this movie is so incredibly well shot. The direction that Sam Mendes had, the musical score that Thomas Newman has, and the Roger Deakins, just a genius. You know, he has so many wonderful things that he's done cinematography for, and the sets that Dennis Gassner put together. I was so impressed. I was also totally impressed with Dean Charles Chapman and George MacKay. George MacKay, he played Schofield. I guess that he had a thing where at the end of every day's shooting, he would go around and say thank you to everybody on the set.
Yeah, he knew all of their names. He knew the stories behind them.
Don't interrupt.
Anyway, I was so impressed by this movie. It is a fantastic movie, and so much to gush about. I am comfortable in giving this movie a 4.5.
Oh, there you go. A 4.5 from the professor.
Would you like me to go next?
Sure, buddy.
This is not Lord of the Rings.
Oh, God. Well, now my rating just went down.
I know. Well, he fucking easily would have given it a 5.
You should have let me continue on with my dream.
Well, first, there's this ring.
So there's these two guys. I don't know. Did we ever see their feet? Were they furry?
No, but they were covered in mud. That's for sure.
true.
And we do see their feet.
Anyway, I have said repeatedly before, war movies are not my thing. Period pieces aren't really my thing. Heck, dramas aren't really my thing. But I found myself liking this movie. Maybe because it wasn't your typical war movie. It's not just about shooting and killing the bad guys and, you know, building up these soldiers only to run out and die, things like that. There was actually, you were drawn in to care about these two guys who were trying to do this mission to save all of these soldiers. You actually felt yourself in the same situations they were because you're following behind them during the whole situation. I also was drawn in by the fact that it was a mock single shot the whole time. And I kind of found myself, you know, especially in the beginning, trying to find where those cuts were and feeling a little challenged about, oh, do you think the cut was there? Or do you think the cut was there? Oh, that must have been where a cut was. Things like that I found I was paying more attention to the movie because of that. There were a few scenes here that are a little far-fetched and a little coincidental. You know, the plane just happens to crash right where they're standing, right at that farmhouse. Why did the German decide to aim his crashing plane right there? I don't know. You know, right at that time. You know, certain people coming out at the same time, that those soldiers showing up at the farmhouse happens to be at the same time. You know, things like that I thought were a little iffy. But it didn't kill the movie for me. It didn't destroy the effect or the immersion into the film. Now, again, storyline-wise, not my cup of tea, not the kind of thing that I really get into. So would I watch this movie again? For the story, probably not. Would I watch it because it's such a beautifully done movie and just watching how the director did it and hearing the music and how it was all put together? Yes, I actually do find myself wanting to watch the movie again for that reason. You know, I don't know if I'd watch it all the way through, but I would want to watch some of it so I can catch some more of the, oh, this must be where they did the cuts. For that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 3.75.
Okay.
Wow, that seems really high for the reasons you gave it.
Yeah. Well,
but
I'm basing it on the fact that while it's not my type of movie, I kind of do want to watch it again, but maybe not right away.
Yeah.
And he has said before that things that he can find the next time around compels him to want to watch again as opposed to just the story itself.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I get that. And I guess it comes down to even getting to that next time around. Mm-hmm. Right. Which therein lies my problem.
Yeah.
My turn. 1917, directed by Sam Mendes. It was shot beautifully and it looked real nice. The story was fine. You know, go deliver this message, stop a massacre, very cut and dry. It was always going to be about the journey. It was always going to be about the two characters, and the way Sam Mendes tells the story, it engages you, and you can't help but watch and feel the tense moments, and all the moments and the beats that you get are very deliberate, and it comes across that way. And, you know, for it to win the Academy Awards that it won, very impressive. I'm still shocked that it didn't get Best Editing, because it was virtually seamless. It virtually could have been a one-shot movie, and then that alone in itself could have you racking your brain. How did they do that? But with the help of computers and visual effects, it became very possible. And, you know, credit to those guys, because they're the ones that did the real magic trick here. That all being said, I'm not a huge war film guy. This did have a lot of elements to Saving Private Ryan for me. It had elements of Lord of the Rings. It just had a bunch of elements that I've seen before. And I feel like, for me and me alone, if you've seen one war film, you've seen them all. I know that's not really a fair statement. That's just kind of how I feel about this. But what I did enjoy, again, was the way that Sam Mendes tells the story. But that alone isn't going to make it, so I'm going to hurry out and watch it again. Will I watch it again? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Am I in a hurry to watch it? Not by any stretch of the imagination. So because of that, I am going to give 1917 a 2.5. Right there in the middle.
I am really surprised I gave it a higher rating than you.
I thought it was going to be the other way around.
Oh, really?
I thought that you would be the higher and you would be the lower, and that's what I thought.
If I didn't spend so much damn time trying to figure out where the fucking cuts were, I might have enjoyed it more.
Well, I think you watched it as someone who makes films.
That's how I watch every movie, dude.
Yeah, and you analyzed it as that.
It's a curse.
You know, for me, I base it off of, do I like the content or not?
We're going to take this moment to remind our listeners out there, come October, we're going to do something. Can you not hit the fucking wires all the time? We're going to do something a little bit fun in October, and we are going to talk about some horror films in kind of a new take that we are going to get recording. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
John, where can they find us?
They can find us at our website, 3guysinaflick.com. They can find us at any popular or even unpopular podcasting hosting site. I've put that bitch everywhere. They can find us at Facebook, Instagram. I don't think we have a TikTok yet, but maybe that's next.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
All right. So I just want to say thank you to our faithful listener out there.
Thanks, Ronnie.
We really appreciate everybody who listens. And for 3 Guys in a Flick, I'm Don.
I'm John.
And I'm Ken. Thanks for listening.
Let me ask you this. Ronnie has listened to every one of our podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Zach has listened to every one of our podcasts. We now have 2 faithful listeners.
Yes.
I am so excited about that. Way to go. Who have you brought to the table?
I have a few people that have listened to 1, maybe 2.
Hey, that's better than nothing, man. The positive spin, right, buddy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right, everyone out there listening, if we suck, specifically John, please let us know so we can better our podcasts for you, the listeners.
Or if you'd like Don to be a little bit nicer.
I think in the comments you should put, is Don too nice?
Or is Don a dick?
Well, we all know I'm a dick. That's not the point. The point is, can I be more of a dick?
Yes.
He said yes.
Yes, you can always. There's always room.
All right. Fuck you both. Good night.